You know me, I love foraging and harvesting what nature has for us. So we're gonna make some Blackberry Brandy and Blackberry Wine right now. So, roll the intro. Hey everybody and welcome back to Eat the World. I'm Chef Alex Lazik and today we're doing something that I think is a lot of fun and really rewarding. Now I filmed most of the shots in this about 8 months ago towards the end of last summer, and making Blackberry Brandy and Blackberry Wine is super easy, and I've thrown in a few shortcuts to make it reliable and absolutely delicious. I can't emphasize enough to you how amazing it is to make your own stuff that you've foraged yourself. Doesn't get much more pure and delicious. Honestly, if it wasn't so good, I wouldn't be making these videos and trying to encourage you to go out and do it yourself. Now before we begin, as always, please like and subscribe and do all those wonderful things. And if you get a chance, please check out my Patreon page. I've got some exclusive content there for my patrons. I've got some great pizza resources, I've got some exclusive recipes, and some pretty awesome stuff. So please have a look, like, subscribe, Patreon. Thanks so much. Let's get started. So, first things first, you need to go and pick a crap load of blackberries. You can use frozen ones too if you like, but I find if you find a patch of blackberries, you will get frickin' loads in the area. Now you need about 1.4 kg or 3 pounds of blackberries for a gallon of wine. And for the brandy, as many as you'd like. I've got a gallon full, so yes, I did a lot of picking. My suggestion is to wear gloves and sleeves because there are plenty of thorns. Also carry around some small shears or scissors for cutting back any vines that are in the way without fruit. Trust me, these are like a weed, so you won't be doing any damage. First we're going to make the Blackberry Brandy because it's so super easy. So let's just wash all the blackberries and get rid of any nasties. You can skim anything that floats to the top with a sieve. So now we are basically just going to pour in our blackberries into a gallon jar or whatever you happen to be using. I recommend a glass jar so it doesn't stain, and I'll come back to that later. Then we are going to layer this with sugar. So I used approximately a cup of sugar to 2 or 3 cups of blackberries. You can adjust this to taste, so it's not a huge deal. Now again, keep layering the blackberries and the sugar, give it a wee shake, and carry on. Once you've loaded up all your blackberries, then we're going to add some 100 proof vodka or neutral spirit. Just pour it all in until it comfortably covers all the blackberries. So once that's done, we're going to cover it with a lid and let it sit for 1 to 2 months. Easy peasy. But we're going to come back to this a little bit later on. Okay, so now we're going to make our wine. I'm actually making 2 gallons of blackberry wine here. So in total, we're going to use 6 pounds or 2.8 kgs of sugar and the same weight of blackberries. So first step is to dissolve that sugar into roughly half a gallon of water. While that's dissolving, let's sterilize anything that will come into contact with our must, which is the juice before it's fermented. This is super important so nothing gets infected. So follow the instructions on the bottle. I'm using a no-rinse sanitizer because it's easy. I'll put it all in the sink so I can keep putting tools in as I need. So in go our airlocks, which will protect the wine as it ferments. I've used these before with the spruce beer and the ginger beer. Also, let's get our gallon fermenter sanitized too. You can fill them up a bit and then give them a bit of a shake. And next I've got the siphoning hose that we will need. This one has a simple fancy manual pump on it, but just a hose will do as well. So hey, if you need any equipment, you can get this stuff easily at any brew shop or on Amazon. Okay, so our sugar is just about dissolved. Once it is, then we are going to pour this over our blackberries, which will kill any germs that might be on the berries. Let that sit for about 10 to 20 minutes, then we are going to basically puree our berries. You can do these with a hand blender, or I used a mini food processor, which was a bit slow and painful, but if you have a bigger one at home, or a blender, go for it. So basically, we're just going to blitz these up and pour the pureed berries into another container and keep going till it's done. I found this a really great method for extracting all the juice, a bit of a shortcut, and no mucking around later on. Okay, so next step, we're going to strain the skin and seeds and anything else out of the juice. I have a fine mesh strainer here, but you can use a cloth straining bag too. Anyways, it's a bit of a laborious process, but just keep going. And it's totally worthwhile because when we're done, we get this amazing juice that looks sexy like this. Next step, we're going to sprinkle over some pectic enzyme, which basically just stops the wine from hazing when we bottle it. Heating the juice up, as we did, can cause this pectic haze to happen. Give it a good stir and make sure it's thoroughly mixed in. You want to use a whisk and probably not a small spoon like Lazy Alex from the past did. So now we're going to use our siphoning pump and load it into our fermenters. These are going to fill up about halfway in each gallon bottle. And then we are going to top up each bottle with cold water to cool it down, because the must needs to be about 20 to 25 degrees, which is perfect for the yeast. Okay, at this point, now it wasn't an issue for me when I was making a 1 gallon bottle of Blackberry wine, but it was a major issue for me when I was making a 6 odd gallon, 25 liter. I picked a mother load of blackberries and decided to make a big carboy full of blackberry wine. Anyways, what I would recommend is, in your smaller carboy, in your gallon fermenter that you're going to use, don't fill it all the way up to the top. Like I said, it wasn't an issue for me, but if you're making a bigger volume of it, what happens when your initial fermentation starts, it can be pretty vigorous and it will foam up, especially in a bigger volume. And then you've just got a big mess everywhere. So what I'd recommend is, after a week, after the initial fermentation has started, just top up your gallon jug with some more water, and then you can carry on fermenting and it will be sweet. Now, if you are going to ferment a big carboy full of blackberry wine, I'd recommend that you do the initial fermentation in a bucket like you would probably most other wines. So you do about a week in a big bucket, a primary fermentation, and then you would transfer it into your carboy for the rest of the fermentation. So again, if you're just doing a gallon, don't fill it up all the way for the first week. Just let that primary fermentation happen, then you can top it up and you will be sweet. On a side note, cover up your countertops because blackberry wine does stain, and every time I make a video that involves that countertop over there, I just look at it and go, it looks like crap because there's a big blackberry wine stain around it. So cover your countertops. Don't get stained. You're welcome. Okay, so at this stage, let's take a specific gravity reading so we can later work out what our alcohol percentage is. I have a spectrometer, but you can use a standard hydrometer. Next, we're going to rehydrate our yeast and then add it to our fermenters. This is always quicker, trust me. I'm using a wine yeast here, but speak to your local winemaking place and they'll point you in the right direction. So when you're done, put the airlock bubblers on top and then let these ferment somewhere warm. Okay, so at this stage, we're going to leave these beauties ferment probably for about 2 or 3 weeks, depending on the temperature and your wine. There's a bunch of different variables happening. Essentially, once all the bubbles in your airlock stop bubbling, it means that your yeast has eaten up all the sugar, converted it into alcohol, and spat out CO2. And if it hasn't, it's just about there. Now, what you can do is check with your hydrometer or a spectrometer to measure the specific gravity of your wine at this stage. It needs to be 1 or below. If you don't have either of those things, just leave it for an extra week, and then what you can do is actually give your wine a little bit of a taste. If it's still sweet, you know it's not ready. Try to get into a place that's a little bit warmer and carry on that fermentation. Now, we've determined that our wine is ready to bottle. So what I recommend that you do at this stage is to rack your wine. So essentially, take your wine from your big carboy or your gallon bottles and rack them into a container and leave all that sediment behind. And then what you're gonna do is put it back into your carboy or gallon fermenter and then leave it for another week. This will help in the clarifying process of the wine. Just make sure, of course, whenever you're moving your beautiful wine around, just make sure anything that touches it has been sanitized. So when it goes back into the carboy, make sure it's sanitized, cleaned out again, sanitized. Just be careful with it. We don't want to ruin it at this stage. So that is exactly what I did. I racked off all of my bottles, my 2 gallons and my big carboy, into a bucket. So I mixed them all together so I didn't have any specific variations between any of the wine. and I cleaned and sanitized the carboys and the gallons again, and then I put them back into the carboy. You can top it up with a little bit of water at this point, let it rest for another week or two if you want, and then you're ready to bottle, or if you want you can rack it again just to help out that clarifying process. You don't need to, but if you want to be very, very, very anal about it, by all means, give it another racking. Okay, so let's get bottling. So we're going to rack our wine again, mixing the bottles so we have some consistency in case there's any bottle variation. You can see here all the sediment in this gallon carboy. And here I am racking that big carboy I made as well. Again, mixing it with the other two bottles to ensure some consistency. And here's our finished wine. I don't know if you can see, but look at that beautiful clear wine in the hose. I love this stuff. Now again, making sure everything is sanitized, we're going to degas our wine with our plastic stirrer. Give it a good old vigorous mix to get rid of any dissolved gas in the wine. And then it's bottling time. Now these are old wine bottles that have been cleaned and sanitized. You can just reuse the caps that were there originally, or ideally go buy some new ones. If you are reusing, just make sure they're super clean and sanitized. If you want to go buy some new bottles, go ahead, but this is perfectly fine. Here I've got my bottling attachment, which basically stops the flow of wine when you lift it off the bottom of the bottle. It makes life a lot easier, trust me. And then, well, that's it. We're going to cap them, cork them, or whatever you have, and leave them in a cool place for about 6 months to a year if you can. And then, well, then it's time to drink. Now quickly back to our Blackberry Brandy. So basically we're just going to strain it off and press out any delicious juice that's left in the berries and any alcohol that is there. So we just want to squash it or squeeze it as much as we can until it's all dry. So finally we've got our Blackberry Brandy or Blackberry Schnapps, which is pretty cool. Like, it's got such a really nice color. You probably can't see this on camera. But anyways, I'm gonna have a quick taste of it. Now, I don't know the alcohol percentage of this, but I'd say it's probably about 35%. It's got lots of berry juice in there. It's just awesome. Anyways, let's have a taste. A little bit of drop in there. Now, it is a little bit murky, which is fine. I don't mind that because it is pure blackberries. That is so good. It's just like, it's just spiked blackberry juice. And it's sweet but not too sweet. Just picture this with a nice squeeze of lime and some ice and some soda water or lemonade or something like that. Something bubbly. This is just really cool. There's so many applications for this for desserts or whatever. Anyways, this is super cool. And I probably will make a cocktail with it down the road somewhere, because summer's coming. And this would be perfect for it. Okay guys, so here we are 8 months later, and we've got our Blackberry wine, which has been resting and doing all this wonderful aging stuff, and I'm pretty optimistic about this. So we're gonna give this a little taste. Now, I trained as a sommelier back in the day. Even though I was a chef, I also loved wines. So making your own wine and working as a sommelier, which I didn't do, I just sort of like enjoyed drinking wine, and I studied it for years and years. You're always kind of trepidatious at the results of your own wine, what it's going to be like. Anyways, let's give it a try. But I'll save you all the wanky wine stuff. We're just going to get straight to the point and see what it's like. Look, first of all, it's got a beautiful color. It looks like blackberries, and it's just beautiful. And it smells like blackberries. It smells like wine. Actually, it's interesting in the way it doesn't even remind me of blackberries so much. It's like grape wine. Anyways, let's have a taste. That's really nice. I'm super happy with that. That is a beautiful, juicy red wine. I'm surprised at how much like a grape wine it is. I mean, obviously it's made with blackberries, but yeah, this is super cool. I'm gonna totally enjoy this. Like, for something that you've made yourself for free, apart from like the few little consumable things that you have to do to make the wine. This is pretty awesome. I'm super happy with that. That's so cool. Look at that color. Like big, red, juicy blackberry wine. And I think, judging by the legs, when I took the spectrometer reading, I was about 13.5%, but it might be on the high 13.5, maybe even 14% in reality. Anyways, blackberry wine. Amazing. Okay guys, so that's us for today. I hope you've enjoyed our blackberry wine and our blackberry brandy. Now, if you can, please like, subscribe, do all those wonderful things. Also, check out my Patreon page. I've got some great resources there, and I've got some exclusive content there. So have a look at that, and that's us. We're done for the day. Or we're done for the year. 8 months, so a couple more months to go, and I'll be picking blackberries again, stocking up for next year. So awesome. So good. Alright, we'll see you soon.